This is the Mooks and the Gripes podcast. Hello, everybody. This is Trevor. Summerly Paul. Paul, how are you doing today?
I am doing well. I told you I've been a little under the weather this week, so I'm, kind of a little droopy, but summer weather is definitely helping.
That is good.
We're getting lots of rain, which I keep saying it's rare, but I feel like I've said that several times on this podcast. So apparently, maybe it's not as rare as I think, but as you know, in the West, any rain is welcome.
Yeah,
so.
Well, that's how it's been here too. Very, very rainy, and in a way that I really enjoy. The only problem is that now that the kids are out of school, over the last few days, they keep on saying, "When are we going to go swim at the pond?" There's a pond here that they love to swim at. In fact, that's where I take a lot of pictures of my books. When people, go onto Instagram, you'll see that pond in the background, and they're really mad at us when we say, well, look, there's like thunderstorms going on. You can't.
Right.
So we have already ruined their summer.
Wow. Real nice. Real nice. Well, and then to add more complications to that, when it's rainy and it's summer, then there's one less option. So the kids are usually inside, and if it goes for a few days in a row, that can get a little noisy, shall we say.
Yes. And they get on each other. And I get on them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the good and the bad of it, I guess.
Yeah, and it is fun. And we do a thing where, they read. We buy snacks that are particular for reading.
Oh, cool.
And they like to go and just sit down somewhere with one of their snacks and read for a half hour or so. In fact, yesterday I came home and out of my wife's office I don't know if you care or have seen or anything with the Mario Brothers movie.
Oh, I haven't seen it, but both of my sons saw it and really liked it. Yeah.
All right. Well, there's that song in there where Bowser's singing about Princess Peach. And it's Jack Black, and I think he wrote the song, so it's catchy and weird and funny. But there's a really lovely piano rendition of it coming from my wife's office. And I'm like, what is going on? And I open the door and one of my sons is in the recliner in there reading. The other one has pulled up a little step stool, the littlest one that he can sit down on one of the steps and then hold his book on the top step, and they're just sitting there eating their snack and listening to Peaches, Peaches, Peaches on the piano. But wow. I was just happy they were reading.
Yeah, seriously. Fun. That's a nice thing to come home to.
Yeah, it was a unique thing, because I thought, what is my wife doing? I don't even think she's here.
And they're reading. They're not like, it's not an act. They actually are just doing
That's awesome. It's fun. So I think all of my kids do enjoy summer reading, and that is what our topic is going to be today, even though it wasn't originally going to be our topic today. Do you want to take it and kind of we'll be transparent and let listeners know why our schedule changed, in case anyone was logging in hoping for a Barbara Pym episode?
Sure, yeah. We were going to have a Barbara Pym episode, but we had some technical difficulties. We had a guest that we were hoping to join us, and it just didn't work out this time. But rest assured, we are working in the background, and it is not canceled. It is just postponed. So
yeah, rain check. We didn't want to just cancel with the guest who'd been preparing for it. We only found out when it was time to log in, and that's when she found out it just wasn't working. It was technological difficulties, and so it rather than just us move forward kind of halfway and not be able to have the benefit of that guests' insights and that conversation, we thought let's take a rain check, and see if we can handle a banter podcast. You and I usually have such a strict schedule and strict topics, and I just move through them.
Our PowerPoint presentations, yeah, exactly.
Right. So this might be a little tricky.
Yeah. Something tells me we could probably fill some time. I don't think it'll be a problem.
But we did decide to kind of just talk about summer reading, taking kind of a cue from the Readers podcast with Simon and Thomas when they used to do Reading Horizons. Do you remember that?
I do remember that. Those were great episodes.
I always really loved those episodes too, where they would just say, "What's coming up on your horizon? Order some books, or some that you're about to start reading, or some books coming out that you're excited about." And since it's that time when summer book season really is upon us. We're recording this the Saturday before Memorial Day in the United States, but when it comes out, in fact, does this episode come out on June 1st, or is it May 31st? Yeah, June 1st. So happy June, everybody.
Yeah, nice.
So yeah, summertime, summer reading, summer feelings, all that stuff. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But I do have a few items of business aside from wanting to know what Paul is not reading in the future, but reading, right now. One, we do have some Patreon subscribers that I have been needing to say thank you to. Angela, she actually joined us in February. Connor joined us in March. Lisa, whom we've known for some time, joined us in March, and then Lars joined us just a week or two ago. Thank you all for your support and for becoming part of the Patreon family. Just as a reminder, they get, we do bonus episodes on there, and we also release episodes to Patreon a couple of days early. It's not like, a massive, early bird kind of special, but right. I hope it's kind of fun. And we really love the community over there, and the folks that are joining in, the support. As we've mentioned in the past, it has helped us a lot, especially over the last few months, where some of the free services that were free because of COVID aren't free anymore. We've had to make some changes to hosting because of price gouging, I will say. But we found some folks that we are very happy with. In the long run, it'll actually be cheaper, but in the front end, it did require some outlays of money. And so very much appreciate Patreon support for that, because we did have the ability to use that right there and then, and so it was very much appreciated.
Absolutely. It's so nice of people. It's we sit here and chat, and to think that people appreciate it enough to support us in these various ways is always just so, in some ways mind-boggling to me, but also just so it's a nice boost. It just feels good. It's very much appreciated.
It is. And there are all kinds of things that we know that not everybody can or wants to support on Patreon, and that is totally fine, because I love just getting on Twitter and seeing the responses to episodes, and I'm going to do a better job. We did get some really good feedback from our titles episode, people sharing some favorite titles, things like that. But my problem is I see it and I usually respond in that moment, and then, after a week or two, it's long gone in my notifications. I need to figure out a better way to record those so that they are things we can share on here, because I very much want to. I mean, that's one of the reasons we solicit it. And then I'm just a failure, Paul.
Not true. No, I need to do a good job too. I think just screenshotting it or grabbing it right in that moment, like you said. But sometimes if you're, on the way somewhere at work and sneaking a glance, you lose track of it. But yeah, I know we did get some great feedback. And one I remember in particular was Ron Restrepo. He mentioned that there was a title a book that he picked up specifically because of the title, and that was The Kiss of the Spider Woman, which I have not read, but I have heard about that book for years and years. And yeah, that's one of those titles that whether you know anything about it or not, it's like right away, what is that about? So that's one I do remember off the top of my head.
Oh, well, another thing that we want to do before we move on to our topic of the day is a giveaway. Yeah. Paul, this one is one that you are offering up. Do you want to introduce it?
Sure. So this is a book that I have not actually read myself, but I was fortunate enough to end up with 2 copies. And it is Occupation Journal by Jean Genot. I hope I'm saying that right. Is that how you say it?
Oh, Genot? I don't. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's always,
right. Yeah. So yeah, just a quick summary. It says, Occupation Journal is a window into one of France's most voracious and critical minds. This fascinating historical journal, kept during the Nazi occupation of France, reveals Giono's musings on art, literature, and life, as well as his forceful political convictions and deep commitment to pacifism. So this is another one of those beautiful books from Archipelago. It's
Mm-hmm.
got a really nice, it's like kind of a, I don't know, brownish green, like muted colors, one of their more muted colors, but I think it's really beautiful. So yeah,
Yeah.
we are excited to give away a copy of that. And we were thinking, given our theme for the day of reading Horizons, to enter in just either on Twitter or via our email. Send us, just let us know that you're interested in entering the drawing and just tell us what's on your reading horizon. It could be the next book you plan to read or what are some of your big reading plans for the summer. But yeah, we would just love to hear a little bit about that. It's always fun to kind of hear what other people are planning to read and see if it's something you've heard about or read yourself. So yeah, send that in, like I said, via email or social media, and we will enter you in the drawing.
Excellent. Do you mind if I just give a taste
Oh, please
of where
do.
we start? So here's the start of Occupation Journal, translated by Jody Gladding, and it starts in 1943, September 20th. Um, and just for listeners, in April, part of the NYRB Women 23 with Kim McNeil, we read Iris Origo's war journals as well, war diaries.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is very much, it just seems like what I'm doing this year. But it
Right.
is September 20th. There is such confusion in people's minds that even among the best of my acquaintances, no one knows how to conduct himself according to the simple rules of nobility and grandeur anymore. So that's the start. Just
Wow.
a nice little opening there.
Yeah. Jumps right in. I forget, have you read, I know you've read some of his books, right?
Yeah, so we read Enemonde last year for
Yeah,
our
that's
one of
true.
our things. I read Hill, and I read
Mm-hmm.
Melville. I think maybe those are the only three I've
That's
read.
right.
Maybe I've read another one. There,
Yeah,
there's
that's,
is there what's the other one that NYRB Classics put out? Is it The King's Road or something like that? I have not
oh
read that
yeah.
one.
It's funny. I don't know why I had that brain blank. Yeah, I'd forgot that Enamonde was him. And I've actually read Melville too, so had, like I said, a little tired today. Yeah, no,
Those were
Melville
the two
especially.
weirdest ones
I
for me.
know they were
Enemonde
really
and
weird.
Melville are strange. Hmm.
I know Melville. I think I did really like it, but it was one that I went into it. I think maybe my expectations were really high, and you know how sometimes that can be a good thing, but sometimes like a book that you would normally enjoy, if you have too high of expectations, you can
Hmm.
kind of be a little bit. So I want to revisit that one now, down the road and kind of see how it works for me.
Do you think it was high expectations or just different? Because when I got that one too, I was expecting one thing, because
Yeah,
it's about
that's
Herman Melville. It's kind of an alternate, I don't know, just this fun little thing. And it turned out to be something very different. And so I don't think I was ready to receive all that it was because I was thinking of something else. Whether or not my expectations were high or low or whatever, it was certainly for something different, especially after Hill, which is
yeah,
beautiful. That's my favorite one so far.
yeah. I think you're exactly right. Actually, that's a much better way of putting it. It wasn't that I was disappointed. It was just that I was wrong-footed by it because, like you said, what I thought it was about and kind of the impression I got about it versus what it turned out to be was two very different things. So yeah, that's definitely the case. But I keep hearing good things about Hill, so that's one that I probably should bump up my stack.
Yeah, for sure. Start that one today, Paul.
Yeah,
I
there
know
you
you
go.
don't. You're looking for something for your reading horizon, right?
Always, always.
Well, on that topic, what have you been reading?
Yeah, I just finished a really good book by Cal Flynn, Cal Flynn, and it's called Islands of Abandonment. I don't know if you've heard about this one. She's an
Only from
invest.
you. I think
Yeah,
you put it on What Are You Reading on Instagram like
I
a week ago
did.
or something.
Yeah, yeah. She's an investigative journalist and nature writer from Scotland, and this book is very similar to another book that I've mentioned a couple times before, which is The World Without Us by Alan Wiseman. I don't know if people remember that's that one I've talked about a couple times, where
Hmm.
it's basically looking at different scenarios in which the world, is recovering or speculating about what it'll be like when humans are no longer around. And this one does a very similar thing. And yeah, it's really, really good. She's a wonderful writer. So it looks at, the devastating impacts that we're all having on the earth, but also it does focus on kind of the resilience of nature and how if you give it a chance, it will come back in surprising ways. And I like it. It's kind of one of those that's written in different sections. So it jumps all over the globe. you spend time with this herd of feral cattle on this island off of Scotland that's just been abandoned by humans. And so she's like spends time kind of watching these cattle, and I guess it's one of the only herds in the world that is considered, pretty much truly feral. They've just been there so long that they've even started to like their body types have changed, their behaviors have changed from domestic cattle. So it does that. It goes to the recovery of wildlife around Chernobyl, which is something that you hear about fairly often. There's a part about how the forests in the DMZ area in the Korean Peninsula, the area in between the two, North and South Korea, that's kind of no man's land. They've talked about how the wildlife in the forest there have just completely surged, and that there's like animal species that are only alive in that area on all of the earth. And then she also looks at like, how Detroit has been abandoned for, economically, it's just kind of fallen apart. And so there's those huge swaths of just, ruins of factories and entire neighborhoods that have just been deserted. And it's really fascinating and also kind of eerie to just see her descriptions of walking through these neighborhoods. And there's just these, like a single home with like basically jungle grown up around it and everything. So yeah, it's a really good book. I mean, it's right in my wheelhouse, I guess you would say. So yeah,
Nice.
that's what I've been reading most recently. It's really good. How about you?
So I was fortunate enough to get copies from Grey Wolf Press of 3 books by Kapka Kasabova.
Hmm.
Is this somebody that you are familiar with? Have you ever read any of her work?
I am familiar with her, but I have not read any of her work. I know that Dorian Stuber in particular is a big fan, and he's recommended her highly to me. And I bought one of them a couple years ago, and don't tell him, but I haven't read it yet.
Okay, I'll keep that. I'll keep
Yeah,
that secret.
yeah, please.
So, in fact, it was Dorian who made me also want to read her work. So I did. I reached out to Grey Wolf and said, "Hey, I'd be interested." And they sent all 3 that they have published of hers,
Oh,
starting
nice.
with Border, A Journey to the Edge of Europe, that was published in 2017. To the Lake, A Balkan Journey of War and Peace, that was published in 2020.
That's
And
the one I
then,
have.
oh yeah,
Hmm.
well, you got to get Border first. It comes first, so you can tell that to Dorian if he ever
Oh,
asks.
uh-oh. All right. Yeah, that's why. That's why.
And then Elixir in the Valley at the End of Time just came out like a week or 2 ago, um, and I've just been excited about them. And started Border. I thought, I'm going to start at the beginning, see how this goes. It looks lovely, and I was just pulled in immediately into this book Border. She's talking about the border between Bulgaria, Greece, and Turkey,
Hmm.
and the its own history, both ancient and current, and how that affects everything, but also the lives along the border. She's talking
Hmm.
about the natural landmarks. It is a nature book in some ways, but also a cultural book, and what it means to live on the border
Hmm.
versus live in the interior in a capital, which is often not at the border, a
Right, that's
dangerous
true. Yeah.
place to be, and it is really, really, really good. I've just again, just from the preface on, I thought, oh man, I'm going to love this. She talks about people die crossing borders and sometimes just being near them. The lucky ones are reborn on the other side.
Hmm.
And little things like that. She says, history is written by the victors, they say, but it seems to me that history is written above all by those who weren't there, which may be the same thing. And then a little bit onward, none of us can escape boundaries between self and other, intention and action, dreaming and waking, living and dying. Perhaps the people of the border can tell us something about liminal spaces. And yeah, it's a journey book. She starts on one part of the border and is walking around. She herself grew up there in Bulgaria, but then when she's it's been some time, moved to Scotland,
Hmm.
where she has continued to work and write and all of that. And so this is a journey home for her as well, in some ways, and journey to this land. but that does form a kind of a trilogy at this point, because each of these are about the Balkans, Border, To the Lake, and then Elixir. And I think it was Jerry Faust on Twitter said she's actually planning it to be a quartet.
Oh, wow.
So
that's good news.
In a few years, we should get part 4, as opposed to the Balkan trilogy by Olivia Manning. This will be Kapka Kasapova's Balkan Quartet. So that's exciting, because
that is exciting. I didn't even know the third one was out, so that's really good.
Yeah, it just came out, and these books, I assume you have the Grey Wolf one. Just really lovely productions. It's got beautiful paper. It's a hefty thing to hold, and just kind of suits the feel of what you're reading. If you're into that kind of thing with physical books. So
absolutely. Yeah, the cover of To the Lake in particular, like I said, that's the one I have, is gorgeous, and I've seen the other one online, and now I need to look up the third one. But yeah, they're beautiful books.
I can see why To the Lake, maybe if you were in the store and saw it, it's a beautiful blue, and it really is a lovely cover. And I can also catch you being like, I want to read the one about a lake.
Yeah, exactly. That's probably exactly what caught my eye, but I should have done my research and realized it was the second one.
Well, and I knew they were somewhat connected, but I don't know yet how, it doesn't matter if you read them out of order. Probably not, based on what I've seen, but maybe Dorian or Jerry will chime in and say, Paul, come on, man, you got to go back to Border, start there. Or maybe they'll say, you can read whatever one you want first. So
very cool.
But, good stuff on our, and that in part is what's on my reading horizon. But let's take a breath for a moment and gather some thoughts to jump into that topic.
Sounds good.
All right, Paul. Hopefully we've both had a moment to consider our reading horizons over the next month or two.
Yeah, the main thing is hard to narrow it down,
So, again, we got this idea from the readers. Always loved these episodes where they would talk about their reading horizons. But I'll be honest, I don't think I ever considered using this for my own reading. I was always more of a, what book just arrived, I'll get to it. And consequently, a lot of books kind of get lost by the wayside. They come in, I'm really excited about them, or they come out, and then other things come out, and things just start to get lost. And so I have a whole bunch of books that I'm excited to read, and realize I've been excited to read that since 2013, or something like that. I know that is not unique to me, and it's not something I've been able to cure entirely, but I always loved these Reading Horizons episodes, and the sense of promise, as you and I have talked about before, the sense of possibility, the excitement of a treat, sometime in the future. Even though I didn't maybe get it, but you kind of started to help me understand the power of this, because I've always really enjoyed it when you say, I am going to read X, Y, or Z in June or in July. And I'll admit, at the first I was like, why don't you start reading it today? But it wasn't like I wasn't trying to feel dismissive. It was a genuine And I realized I kind of like that idea of something to look forward to when that time comes, versus just I hope when I'm done with this book, I'll still be in the mood to read that one, next. And so I started to do that a little bit more. And you may remember our holiday reading episode. I cleared the board. I read all the books that I said I was going to. And so ever since then, I have been keeping a little bit of a list so that books don't fall by the wayside. It gets longer, and I have to delete some things from it when I'm just like, I'm not going to get to that. And I don't want this to get unwieldy and just have a list of, 100 books that that I'm planning to read in the near future. That doesn't serve its purpose anymore. But I find this very helpful, because when I finish a book, or when I'm looking at what do I want to read next, even while I'm in the middle of a book, it does give me a chance to say, oh yeah, don't forget that one. and
Mm-hmm.
maybe give myself a time, like I'm going to start that one over the weekend. It doesn't always work.
Right.
And yes, these Kasabova books showed up somewhat surprisingly, and so they weren't on the list, but they are definitely part of my reading horizon. And yesterday I got a nice book package from Coffee House, that had 3 books, uh, that aren't even new books. I have no idea who sent it. It was not Mark Haber. He confirmed that with me, so I don't know who it was. But thank you. And they're all little, and they're from a few years ago. I'll bring them up in a future episode because I am planning on reading them. But those just came out of the blue. I had no idea
Ah.
they were going to even arrive, and it's not, like I say, it's not their front list. It's not like the new uh, Monica Ojeda book that's coming out that looks amazing.
Mm.
It's older stuff, and so I'm very excited about that. So this does, to me, give space for plans as well as for that serendipity of something arriving.
Yeah.
But
That's
so yeah, I've got some plans. Have you sat down to make any summer reading plans yet?
yeah. I have, but it's been kind of like a haphazard approach. I have been reading Solenoid. I've been reading that for a long time, and I've really enjoyed it. But just given the last couple of weeks, like we've talked about, with the craziness of life and not feeling a little under the weather, I kind of lost my way with it a little bit. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm debating whether it might be time over the summer to dip into some smaller and maybe a little more light. And when I say light, I mean light for us. we don't we're not necessarily always the lightest readers.
Still going to be dour and pessimistic,
Exactly. I'm still me, but I just because I have a big stack of giant books that I'm really excited to read that I've been gathering up over the last year. And I wouldn't be surprised if one of those makes its way onto my list this summer. But I'm kind of balancing that right now with the idea of, like I said, I've been reading Thomas Mann's Joseph and His Brothers with a reading group, which I'm really enjoying this year. And then I'm reading Solenoid. And so having these big, huge monsters that are, a matter of months or even a year long, right now it's kind of appealing to me to maybe dip into some other stuff. So,
hmm
I haven't completely narrowed down all of the choices, but I can talk about a few and as we move along. But I would also, I wouldn't mind some suggestions from people if they've been reading some, shorter books or some books that are kind of just good summary reads. I would be open to some recommendations too.
Awesome. All right. Well, let me get the ball rolling here a little bit. This is a book that I've always, ever since I received it, have thought this is what I'm going to read in June.
Oh, cool.
And it is Margaret Kennedy's The Feast.
Oh, yeah.
I bought that one from McNally Editions. It's such a beautiful cover, beautiful edition. I love their new style so much.
It's beautiful.
I want all of them. But The Feast by Margaret Kennedy. When it arrived, I thought, oh, maybe I should start this now. And I, didn't, and thought the cover just makes me want to read it in June. When I myself go on a little holiday to a lake, and I don't know if it has much to do with any of that. I mean, I have read somewhat the premise, but not a ton. It just
Mm,
feels like a holiday at the beach read, but maybe not the happiest one. I don't know.
right. No, that's a great one. I remember you talking about that when you picked it up, and like you said, those editions are beautiful, and I've heard lots of praise about that one. So that seems like that would be a good summary
hmm
book. So
Yeah,
you
I'm
think you'll kick
excited.
that one off pretty soon?
Yeah, pretty soon. Yeah, maybe by the time this episode goes up, because right now I'm finishing up some NYRB Women 23
Mm.
books. Book. I have been on that schedule day to day, consistent, which I'm pretty
Yeah.
proud of too. I have not missed a day. So we're finished. We'll have finished our 10th book, which is the 10th book is Our Spoons Came from Woolworths by Barbara
Hmm.
Cummins, which I love it. But the 2 books that are coming out for us in June for that particular project are ones I have not read that I'm really excited about, and that's Gillian Rose's Love's Work and Sylvia Townsend Warner's Summer Will Show. So
Hmm.
again, 2 other books by female authors. I'm very excited about all of that, about these topics, and summer. I'm excited for June.
Yeah, I've been dipping in and out of the women's NYRB group. I've not been as consistent as you have been, but I have been reading Our Spoons Came from Woolworth, and I'll
Oh,
admit
have
I'm
you?
a little behind on the schedule, but yeah, it's so good. I hadn't read that one before, so I love her work, as we've said before, so enjoying getting to revisit her again.
Yeah, that it is so good. It
Yeah,
really is.
it is such a her tone of her characters are it's so odd and like hypnotic and strange, and everyone's different, but it all has that. I don't know how to explain it, but just it's odd.
Yeah, it is. There's a naivete to it, but
Hmm.
it's still so insightful and specific. It is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one that I'm eyeing is a pretty new one that just came out, and I mean, not just came out, but it's a pretty new book, and it was one that was shortlisted for the International Book Prize. And I think we've talked about it a little bit in some of our archipelago discussions, but it's Whale by Chian
Hmm.
Yong Kwan. Um, yeah, it's just um, between hearing so much about it online and then when I got it, it's just this bright yellow, beautiful book with this, really nice artwork on it. And then you start reading a little bit about it, and it seems like it could be a good, I don't, it may not be a page turner, but it has a little bit of that element to it. It says, we meet Chun Hui as she returns to the scene of a crime she may or may not have committed. She drinks from a spigot, clobbers the head of a large snake, and eats it raw, slowly stopping only to spit out cartilage. In its belly was a frog. She eats that too. Chian's story widens to embrace a motley assortment of characters, many of them motivated by lust or vengeance, many cobbling together cash from their jobs as dock workers, fishmongers, bricklayers, or geishas. Chian's cinematic gift brands the brain. A penniless runaway sits thigh to thigh with a vicious gangster as John Wayne seduces her from the silver screen. A glittering whale twists in the air before being carved into pieces. A beloved elephant is resurrected as a stuffed mascot posted in front of a popular cafe. So it just sounds like, an odd but very intriguing book. So it's been calling to me from the shelf, and I'm thinking that one sometime this summer might be a good one to dip into.
Yeah, that one's on my list as well. It's I've heard good things about it, but for some reason I haven't started it yet. I'll when you start it, let me know
Okay.
because I may use that as a time to jump in.
Okay. Sounds good.
So another one that I have on my read list that I have started, but it's going to take some time, is the latest and the last, sadly, book by Javier Marias,
Mm,
Tomas Nevinson. It
yeah.
came out a week or so ago from Knopf, or maybe even just this past week, and I took a little picture for last week's "What Are You Reading" over the weekend with it stacked on top of a few of his other, lovely looking hardcovers, but particular Berta Isla. This takes place in the same world, same general characters. Of course, it has one of those, catch you by the throat, make you intrigued, but also a little uncomfortable opening sentences.
Yes, he's good at that.
Have you do you know what it is? Have you
No, I
read the
don't.
first? Are you interested in
I
knowing, or are
absolutely
you
am.
more like, oh, let me just open up the book and get it myself?
No, I'd say give us a little taste.
All right. So I'll read this, the first sentence here, and it says, "I was brought up the old-fashioned way, and could never have dreamed that I would one day be ordered to kill a woman."
Wow.
Not one of his longer ones. Sometimes his first sentence, if I'd said I'll read the first sentence, we'd be here for some time. But
Hmm.
that one's just a very, very short one and disturbing. You,
Yeah.
you know, even though it's just more the idea of it all, and he kind of goes on. The way he keeps going on is very unsettling, about this, old fashioned belief.
Mm, yeah. Old
And
fashioned.
so I'm excited to keep going through that. I think that'll be one of the books that just kind of marks this summer for me.
Yeah.
I'll see about that, but very, very anxious to get into it.
Yeah, anytime one of those kind of for us landmark authors, like when Cormac McCarthy's books came out or that one, it's like you said, it kind of marks the year because you've been looking
Hmm.
forward to it and you've kind of had it on your calendar. And then if you have the chance to read it, if it's good, and usually they are, it kind of creates that kind of that stamp on the year. So yeah, you've read all of his books, is that right?
No, not all of them, but most of them.
Yeah.
There are a few, and I think I have them all on my
Mm-hmm.
shelf, but I have not read all of them yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's one we're circling around. Um, is he on your horizons?
He is, because I've only read A Heart So White, and I loved it, and so I have a stack of 3 or 4 other ones, and on top of that, we have a future episode where we're going to be together. So I want to make sure that not that it's an assignment by any means, because it's one of those that's a nice motivation and a good boost to read an author that I've been meaning to get into more. So yeah, I'm absolutely looking forward to reading more of his.
Nice. All
Which,
right.
if I was going to read one this summer, A Heart So White is the only one I've read. Do you have a second one that you'd recommend that's a good one? Not to put you on the spot. If not, that's fine, because I can just dig through my.
Yeah, it definitely depends on how far you want to go, because
Mm,
the the older ones I really did love. I love them all, but Tomorrow in the Battle Think on Me
mm.
is really really good. All Souls is really good, but I, I really love Your Face Tomorrow, and that could
That's
take you up the rest of your year.
Yeah, that's the one that does call to me. And I think I've told the story before where I saw them all sitting beautifully side by side at a used bookstore in Seattle, and was just, my heart jumped out of my throat, and I grabbed them right away and ran up to the counter, and have not yet read them. But yeah, that is one that the only thing keeping me maybe from doing it is, like you said, I would assume it would be best to read them kind of back to back to back. So,
the, I I did that, and
mm-hmm,
so I did enjoy that way. So probably, but at the same time, it they are long and meandering. It doesn't feel. It just feels like a long bad dream.
okay.
And they
See if
very
that doesn't sell
dreamlike in
you.
a way too. Yes, in the last one in particular, he's so good at taking just a tiny moment of time and then blowing it up for like a whole book.
Mm-hmm.
And in the last one, there's a part where this is going to sound weird, and it's almost like, well, what? That doesn't sound appealing. There's a part where there's a guy swinging a sword at someone, and that takes like 400 pages, I want to say.
Wow.
But not that it's just, and then the sword, it's the thoughts going through the mind during that swing. He's
Wow.
so good at digging in and really, expanding on those little moments, and then twisting them a little bit to say, but it could also have been this, or,
Mm,
um, you know, he makes it so interesting. But yeah, we'll get into more of that when we do the episode itself.
absolutely.
But
Yeah. No, he could definitely make his way, and he should make his way onto my summer reading, because I need to do it, because he's one that I have no excuse for not having read him. I'm so excited to do it. But well, another one that you've talked about this book fairly recently, and it really won me over to not only buy it, but based on your description, I want to
mm.
start dipping into it, is The Story of a Life by Konstantin
Oh yes.
Ostovsky. You sold it so well, and I think what appeals to me about it from the summer perspective is, if I'm not putting words in your mouth, you said that it was one that you could kind of read in small chunks and sections. And so again, like, with coming off of the heels of some of these big door stoppers that I've been reading, even though this is a big door stopper, there's something appealing to me about that idea of little, bite-sized chunks.
Yeah,
So, and,
that's what
and
I
from what
did.
you,
Loved it.
yeah, yeah, and you've said it's, a lot of childhood, and I'm sure there's a mix of different types of, I'm sure it's not necessarily all light or dark, but from what you've said, I seem to remember using the word delightful or something similar to that, and that sounds appealing to me right now.
Yeah, I mean it is. He's going through some horrible things that he writes about, with
Mm-hmm.
the revolution and the First World War.
Mm-hmm.
But he's kind of an optimist in a
Yeah.
way, and it's really nice. And I did like doing just a chapter a day. Every once in a while I'd read 2 or 3, just depending, but that was my goal. And it's because not every chapter was a winner. He is just, you can tell he's like sitting down just saying, okay, some other memories, especially the childhood ones.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew I could get through them. They're like 7 or 8 pages is all.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't this feeling that I never got derailed by a chapter that I was like, oh, didn't care as much about that one as I want to get back to, this relationship or this other thing, or he didn't have any of those little nuggets that he has throughout. But yeah, very, very good. I hope you enjoy it, for sure. That's just a special one for
Yeah.
me. I'm excited for someday, hopefully, getting the second volume that'll have books 4, 5, and 6.
I know. If we keep talking about it, maybe someone out there will hear our cry and let us know. Yes, it's underway.
I know that's a thing. I've never asked directly because I don't want to sound demanding, but I would love to know if this is actually happening.
Yeah.
I'm
I
sure
hope
it
so.
is. I'm sure it is.
It's got to be.
But who knows? um, let's see some other ones that I will be reading for sure. The Last Chronicle of Barset, book 6 of the
6.
Chronicles of Barset, sure, by Anthony Trollope. I am in the middle of The Small House at Allington. The book group that I'm a part of, a lot of people were getting behind and starting to feel like it was a bit of a chore and more stressful than pleasant. So they decided, hey, let's make these now 2 months.
Mm.
So the Small House at Allington, they're reading from May and June, and then the Last Chronicle of Barset will be in, I think, July and August then. But I've been on schedule, and so I'll be doing that one much sooner. But yeah, I've loved this one. The one, Framley Parsonage was a little bit of a
Mm-hmm.
chore at times,
Yeah, I remember you said that wasn't your favorite.
but that was it. The for whatever reason, I just had a harder time with that one. But the Small House at Allington is just back to the touching relationships, the people with their little disappointments that you realize are so meaningful. Just makes you well up,
Mm.
when you're reading about their quiet struggles. I just am really enjoying it, and I'm excited to get through it all, but a little bit sad too when that time comes. But the Last Chronicle of Barset is like a billion pages or so it'll be a bit of time
There's
before I'm
plenty to
done.
look forward to. That's the only one that I haven't been able to pick up or haven't managed to find yet, but it's on my radar. I want to grab that one. But so would you say that, because I know how much you loved The Warden,
Hmm.
not to say that they all have to match that, but do you feel like overall, having read as many as you have now, that that one stands above the rest, or do you feel like overall it comes out, to a whole?
It does come out to a whole. It's a whole community, and um, that one's probably still my favorite, just because I loved Septimus Harding
Yeah.
and his own quiet struggle, with how do I handle this situation? I'm very uncomfortable. I want it
Mm-hmm.
all to go away,
Right.
kind of situation. But the kindness that still stayed a part of him.
Mm-hmm.
I loved Trollope's little asides about the other characters, even the ones that we don't like. Trying to build in some, but we don't know. We haven't seen everything about this person. They
Yeah.
are still have their good side as well, and just love that one. But the others, like, the others have been so fun, because they deal a lot more with relationships and weddings, and it's not quite, it's not like Jane Austen entirely, but it is a lot more of the younger people,
Hmm.
the next generation trying to get themselves established in life. And so there's a lot more proposal scenes that go wrong, and it's just kind of fun.
Yeah. I'll
In
stop
fact,
quizzing you about him, but do you think you'll read some of his other books? I mean, obviously, probably someday, but do you think you'll take a break?
it depends on this group, because if they're, I kind of feel like they might take a break,
Yeah.
before we get on to the Palliser
Oh, so originally the
books.
plan was just to do all of them. Okay.
Yeah, yes, because it
Wow.
has 6 as well. The plan was
Mm-hmm.
2023. Every month we read one, finishing with the Chronicles of
Okay.
Barsetshire in the end of June, and starting up with the next one July until December. That certainly isn't going to be the case now, because that's already been nixed. But I
Mm.
am curious if they'll also say, like, hey, let's take a break. And if they do, I might. Um, but I kind of don't want to. You
Yeah.
know, I just have enjoyed having him be a part of my regular reading life over the last, 6 months or so.
Yeah. If you could, if you end up pulling it off that way, that would be a pretty cool thing to read across an entire
I
year.
I
Just kind of
think
like
so
I'm doing with
too.
Thomas Mann. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep, I think so too. And I strongly recommend you carry on with
Oh yeah.
Barchester Towers. I mean, especially the first 100 pages of that book, I was just just so excited, and I loved the whole thing. But there, you're dealing with characters from the Warden,
Hmm.
and seeing them, and it's so fun. But that one has all of its weird hijinks, and you get to meet Obadiah Slope, who is just
What a great
oh,
name.
a great name. He's played by Alan Rickman in the film for
Mm.
the adaptation, and man, just it fits. He's so.
Sounds like a Dickensian name.
Oh man, I think these should be Trollopian names. Honestly, his
Yeah.
names are. I mean, Dickens for sure had his things, but um, Trollope was right there with him. We have
Hmm.
Dr. Philgrave, which I'm like, that is so funny because it goes both ways. It's like, you feel grave. I also am a bad doctor. He feels graves.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so funny, these little names. And
That's hilarious. Yeah, that's
but
true. He probably doesn't get as much credit as he should.
hey, anything else that's on your reading
Yeah,
list for the
one more that
summer?
I'll mention is from one of my favorites. As we keep returning to the nature writing theme, I've talked a lot about Robert Macfarlane, and I've keep parceling his books out because, like we
Hmm.
talk about with our favorite authors, like there's that, just like you're doing with Trollope. Like, do I want to read them all in a row? Do I want to save them? So I have been saving his, but this one is one that I think I'm going to finally get to, and it's called The Old Ways: A Journey on Foot, and it's one I think it's one of his that's it's very highly regarded. He sets off from his Cambridge home to follow the ancient tracks, holloways, drove roads and sea paths that form part of a vast network of routes that crisscross the British landscape and its waters, connecting them to the continents beyond. The result is an immersive, enthralling exploration of the ghosts and voices that haunt old paths, of the stories our tracks keep and tell, and of pilgrimage and ritual. And I mean, that just sounds so much up my alley that, like I said, that's part of why I've been keeping it. I talked about the wild places and how that did that. It was journeying all across parts of the UK and that general area and looking at things through particular landscapes like a fen or I don't remember all of them, but a mountain peak or whatever. And this one seems like it might have a similar spirit where you're getting these little glimpses and vignettes of different parts of the country. So yeah, like I said, that one is one that I think would be another one that I could kind of read in chunks, maybe interspersed with other things. But yeah, Robert McFarlane, I keep waiting to see. I know I'd seen something a while back where he said he was kind of exploring doing some different things. He's written some children's books and some poetry and stuff, but I selfishly keep hoping that he'll eventually return back to some of these, nature essays because I just love them so much.
It is
So,
fun. I've really enjoyed getting to know more of this side of writing from
mm,
you. So I'm glad that you've got another one in front of you
yeah,
at least.
yeah, absolutely.
Well, and then I have a question for you, if you wouldn't mind indulging me.
Not at all.
Well, okay. First, other thing that I am reading and
Hmm.
have been for a bit is the new edition, but not a new translation, of Swan's Way,
Oh, you
the
have.
NYRB Classics put out. It's the translation by James Grieve. He actually
Hmm.
did this back in um, 1980. I mean, this translations is a little bit younger than I am and than we are, but it's the first time it's ever been available outside of like Australia, New Zealand. I think it's awesome.
Do you
I
really?
really do. People, the first line has put people off. You
I
probably have
know.
seen that. It
Yeah,
says time.
controversial.
Yeah, it says time was, and then kind of goes on with it. But I'm actually reading it with like two other translations, and almost every time I find the one that I prefer, being poetic, clear. He's got a crispness to it, but it doesn't lose some of the shadows and the little corners and nooks and crannies of the old Moncrief Kilmartin translation that I really love. And I hate to say it, I don't like the Lydia Davis translation. That's the one I was going to read a few years ago.
Yeah,
I don't like it very much at all. And so but I do have that one pulled up too, so that I can kind of compare them all. I'm going to post something somewhere just so people can read them themselves. I'm not, I'm say this is my favorite, but you can look at the various passages. I just find his the word choice, the way he arranges his sentences. And the thing is, it's not like you can say, oh, he takes too much poetic license because he arranged it this way, where the original, and I always have the original French written there too. It's structured this way. All of the translators change the structures of these sentences because we don't write in French. We don't have the same sentence structure. So they do have that license to do that. But I find his ways of getting around that and still being faithful to the French just wonderful. I believe that he translated the second volume as well, and that's part of that Penguin Deluxe set that they did with 7 different translators. But he did no more. He has died, and he did not finish this out. But I'm a little bit bummed by that because I'm really, really enjoying it. But that I also feel is going to take me some time to get through because I've given myself the extra work of when I get to a certain passage, then going and looking at it in, these other translations in French and typing them down sometimes. And I'm, so
that's
yeah,
cool.
it's not something probably I should do the first time through the book, but I am enjoying it. It makes it so that I sit and really look at these passages. It's fun.
I think as long as you're enjoying it, I mean, I'm just happy to hear that you dipped your toe in and that you're making your way through it. It is a bummer. I was going to ask you about how many of them he had translated. It's a bummer that he didn't make it through more of them, but maybe you'll at least get into it enough that you'll, feel the desire to continue and other translations that work for you as you move along.
I think so, for sure. Now, here's the other thing. So there's another translation coming out later this year.
Oh, really?
From Oxford. It's the one by Brian Nelson. They've actually had Oxford World's Classics has had his edition of his translation of Swan and Love in print for some time. Again, I've never read it, but he has now rounded out and done the whole, of Swan's Way, and I've heard good things about this as well. I think from Alina Stefanescu. I think she has said that this is the one she has taught, and she's been going through these as well. It's been kind of fun. But yeah, so if you really want, and part of me's like, oh, I'll grab that one when it comes out and see how it compares and do all this again.
There you go.
So it's been fun.
Just be reading the first book for the rest of your life.
That's right. Cycle. I may never get onto the rest of them if people keep translating the first book and that's it.
That's right.
That's what I've got.
That's awesome.
But I don't know if you have any others you want, but I do have one question for you before we go. So just make sure. I don't want to cut you off, but I don't.
No, I'll do. There's 3 big ones that when I do decide to get to them, I don't know which one I will read, but Antagony by Luis Goytisolo, Tombs of Sand by, I'm doing really bad with these names, I apologize, Gitanjali Shri, and The Garden of 7 Twilights by Michael de Pello. Like those are all, they're all big. And so that's where, like I said, Solenoid, having read that and enjoyed it, but just lost some momentum at the end, not due to the book. I just have to decide how I want to handle another big book and when I want to do it. But I would say by the end of the summer, I wouldn't be surprised if I'm well into one of those 3. I don't know which one yet. Whichever one tickles my fancy, I think.
I have all of those as well, and have not read any of them. But they're all very intriguing. You got 2 Dolphin titles there.
I know they are intriguing.
And if Miss Macintosh, My Darling, comes out, which I don't think it will in the super near term this summer, but it's certainly on its way.
Yeah.
You'll have another big one to add to that.
I know. Gotta keep chipping away, otherwise I'll just be buried in books.
All right, my question. So I'm doing that library challenge that my wife is running at the local library, and I'm done with the main challenge. It was 25 books on certain categories, and you pick and choose. But the bookmark that has all the categories has, I think, 44, and I have I have like 10 left, I think, and it's been slower because for example, one of the ones is with a heist. I just I can't. When I read Our Spoons Come from Woolworths, I can't figure out where the heist is to make it fit.
Yeah.
So I'm getting down to these kind of last categories, but a few of them are ones where I'm like, I have a lot of options. I want to use it wisely, and one of them that I haven't done yet is an American classic.
Okay.
Any ideas? It's
boy.
hard to figure out ones that I haven't read, but then ones I haven't read that I have been looking forward to reading. It's certainly a well I have not drawn all the water from. I mean, that seems like a very kind of uppity way of putting it. There are actually lots that I have as potential. I've never read Henry James' The Portrait of a Lady. I have a few more Carson McCullers books that I want to read, including The Heart is a Lonely Hunter.
Ooh, that's one I was actually going to potentially mention. That is really good.
I have not read Cassandra at the Wedding, but really enjoyed, getting to know her work. And right now, the name of the author is Dorothy Baker. And I'm like, I knew it would come as soon as I needed to put it away. I enjoyed getting to know her a little bit through the NYRB Women 23 and want to read that one.
That one's really good too.
Plenty of Faulkners I've not read, a few Whartons, a few Cathers. Eudora Welty has a few I haven't read, and so I actually have a lot of options. But I'm trying to find the one that when I hear it, I go, oh, yes, that's the one, and it hasn't happened yet.
I know. I was after having our discussion. I don't know when that was last year about Faulkner when I read Absalom, and you had said that you had always kind of considered him, not purposefully, but in your mind, he'd kind of been categorized as like work or homework, at times. Like I was gonna suggest one of those might be good, but I was a little reluctant based on I wouldn't want it to be something where if any of that lingers of feeling like it would be an assignment, that wouldn't be good.
I don't think so. I've read a few of his books. I really loved As I Lay Dying. But like I say, all of these are books I want to read or authors I want to keep reading from. But how sometimes someone says the name of a book and it just clicks into place. It's like, oh, that's the one. That's what I'm waiting for. Yeah. And by the way, I've been, fielding a lot of very angry emails about listeners who say you keep on ruining their bingo board. It's been a long time since you mentioned Lonesome Dove.
Ooh,
that could definitely count as an American classic.
Well, I mean, yeah, obviously that would be, but
it's a Western, and I need to read a Western this year. So I have that already slotted in.
Okay, awesome. And it can't tick two? Can't tick 2 boxes?
Can't tick two. Can't tick two.
Have you read Passing by Nella Larson?
I haven't read that one yet.
That would actually be another really good one to consider. It's slim, which is a bonus too. But
right.
That's one I read last year. You could just add it to your maybe list.
Yeah, they've got that new Penguin Classics edition.
Yeah, that's a really good one. That one might work. Trying to think. I mean, there's so many good options. I mean, I don't know about classic. I guess it's up to you to define that.
I think so.
I think Gene Stafford. Obviously, I love The Mountain Lion. I don't know if that's considered a classic. I mean, it's NYRB Classics, so it's right in the title, right?
That's right. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, and certainly, I've already fulfilled the challenge, so it is, and it, it's not like anyone is there patrolling it. In fact, I think my wife told me someone put down I Capture the Castle as their American classic, and it's like, not American,
right?
But anyway, some of these I feel like are opportunities to get to a book that I've been long wanting to get to.
Yeah, I
and
agree.
This is one of them. This is one of the categories. Yeah.
Have you read Walden?
I have. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that would be another good summer book.
Really enjoyed it. Mm-hmm.
I did too. Yeah, I'm kind of just scrolling down through my list of some of the books that I own and trying to think. But yeah,
if it were a British classic, I mean, I'll be honest, there's so many more of those that you see on the lists that I want to read.
I agree.
Than the American classics. And I don't know if that's just where I'm at in life right now, but I took a ton of American literature courses. So I again, this is a little bit, I don't mean this. I actually know that I'm wrong. My feeling though is sometimes I've been there, done that.
Right.
And I know that's wrong. There are plenty that I still haven't read that I know would be wonderful to read. I just don't get quite as excited about it as other categories. And so,
yeah. Well, you have to let me know, what you end up going with. But I would at least consider, I think, Passing by Nella Larsen would be. Yeah, if I had to pick one that I would recommend from just that little impromptu search through my list, that's probably the one I would pick.
The two you mentioned there, the Passing and the Mountain Lion, are both ones that have that moment of like, oh yes. Yeah. I'm feeling it.
Okay. Well, yeah. I said Passing, but obviously the Mountain Lion, I rave about that one all the time. So that one is a given that I would say that would be another one high on the list. So yeah, you'll have to let us know in future episodes what you end up going with.
Sounds good. Oh, apparently my wife is listening to me. She can't hear you because I got my headphones on, but she did recommend Customs of the Country by Wharton, which I love Wharton, and I've been wanting to read this one for a long time. And the Instagram influencer drama story before Instagram was even invented. And I've heard, she talked about that, and I think it was Dorian who read it a year ago, and he's like, "This feels so modern." The way this is going on in these relationships. So that one's one too that I love Edith Wharton's work so much, and Willa Cather. Those are two that I, as I say, I've kind of been there, done that. Those are two that I'm like, no, I want to read everything they ever wrote.
I agree.
And but I almost feel like I want to savor those. It does bring up one last theme that you and I haven't talked about yet, but I'll bring it up live.
Okay.
Do we want to do a MOOCs summer book club again? Last year reading The Lost Lady by Willa Cather and being joined by Chris Wallach to talk about that was awesome. I loved it.
That was awesome.
And I loved the poll that we did to get it whittled down to that choice.
I like that idea. I think we should.
All right. We'll take this somewhat offline to keep on going, but Paul just said we're doing it, I think.
Uh-oh. Yeah, I'm committed.
We did that over the summer, and then I think we talked about it in August. So we have time both to put this together. We did the poll over this next week after Memorial Day.
Okay.
Because I remember I was on holiday and while the poll was running, and so we're in that time of year where we threw that out there and let listeners choose our fate, and it was a wonderful fate.
It was. Absolutely. So, I like that idea.
Not that there may have been bad fates, but we'll have to see if we want to just go with the other choices we had on that poll and see what wins this year, or do something completely different. One thing I loved about A Lost Lady is that it was wonderful, but it was also relatively short. So it never felt like it was going to interfere with other plans.
Yeah, that is one of the factors to consider for sure. Mm-hmm. But
you don't want to put on The Garden of Seven Twilights. Should we have listeners choose which one of those you have to read over the summer?
If you mean by you mean both of us, then maybe.
I meant you. I did mean you. Not that I don't want to read those books.
No, I agree, but I don't know that I would want to read them in that type of time-constrained fashion. Mm-hmm. I'll say that much.
Yeah, I in fact I started, but I only had the online, like the PDF, The Garden of Seven Twilights. I found that I could not read it that way, but I was enjoying it. But there's so much referencing and things going back and forth. Doing that on a screen versus having a book that you can flip through, it just didn't work for me.
But you now do have a physical copy as well?
I don't yet. No,
you
I need to get one.
Yeah, you do. Cool. Yeah, no. Stay tuned. We will fill you in as we kind of, fine tune this idea. But I would be up for it. It sounds good because that was a lot of fun last year.
I thought so too. I did enjoy it, and again, got me to read a book I've been wanting to read for a while, but just hadn't. And that was part of our purpose with it. I think all of the books we chose were books you and I both thought, I do want to read this. Haven't read it yet. I'll be good with it winning. None of them were losers. So,
right, exactly. That's definitely the way to do it.
All right. Well, thanks, Paul. I think we filled the time up. All right.
I think we did. Hopefully, it worked out for all the listeners and they agree. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it.
Me too. And a reminder of the giveaway: Jean Giono's occupation journal. Please feel free to send those emails or send us stuff on Twitter or Instagram. To get your entry in. And otherwise, we will be back soon. We're not sure exactly when we'll be able to reschedule the Barbara Pym episode. We want to make sure we work that with our guest because we're just so excited to have her and her insights. But it will be coming up relatively soon. And we need to do some work and figure out what the rest of our summer is going to look like on recording. So we
do. Yep. As always, speaking of, feel free. We always welcome ideas. Some of our most well-received episodes have been ones that listeners have sent in, like our hotel episode. That was awesome. So feel free if there's something that you think we could consider. We're always open.
All right. Well, thanks, Paul. You have a great holiday weekend.
You too.
And we'll talk to you soon.
All right. See you later.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Mooks and the Gripes podcast. You can follow the Mooks and the Gripes and get show notes and book and film reviews at mooksandgripes.com. On Twitter, you can follow Trevor at Mooks and Paul at BiblioPaul. You can also get information about future shows on our Patreon. If you'd like to donate to the show, anything and everything, even $1 a month helps and is deeply appreciated. You can become a Patreon at patreon.com/mooks. Until next time.